healthy pursuit of relational wholeness will have to deal with these specific deficits in the self-functioning of both partners.
Is there a place for that? Because I agree with you. I like the emotion focus, but I also agree, you know, there's a place for what's happened in the past of what, you know, even like my example couple self-disclose some things that happen, you know, like 3 days into their marriage that are impacting them.
Yeah.
So there's obviously just dealing with this issue is not dealing with that whole length of what got them into this issue 30 years later.
Right. Yeah. So are you asking, is there room to explore that from other orientations?
Like both orientations.
Yeah.
In that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think, and I don't know this for certain, but I don't think any EFT therapist would say the individual's histories don't matter. Of course they matter. It's just the amount of appreciation you have for how the past might be impacting the present.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That makes sense.
So let me say a word or two. These are kind of more abstract ideas. So I'm going to try to deliver them in a way that will not necessarily answer all your questions, but at least pique your interest. Because I think this is one of the distinguishing differences between, say, experiential therapies and more psychoanalytic therapies. I mentioned this idea that comes from Melanie Klein about the death instinct, that not only do we want to change, but there are parts of ourselves that are working against us to change. Bromberg talks about it as this. I love this quote. Patients try to remain the same while changing. You know, there's this great picture this, and you don't have to use much imagination to picture this, but as individual, maybe even place one of your patients or yourself is pushing this boulder up a mountain, right? So you've got that picture. Now picture yourself. You're pushing it up and you're also pushing it down. That's how the process of change works, and that's why it takes a long time to change. Because we not only are we motivated to change, but there are aspects of ourselves, going back to the self states, that are working against us. And here is the theoretical explanation of that. It's found in Ornstein's work around this notion of the dread to repeat. So in any leading edge of desire, call it desire for connection, call it desire for self-actualization, is connected to the trailing edge of a fear that you will repeat the previous failure to meet that striving desire, right? So you're never just entering into a new thing, right, with just the sole desire for change. There's this nagging doubt. Will I be disappointed again? That's the dread to repeat. So think about that in light of your couples and what it requires for both individuals to open themselves up to one another again. It's going to initiate this notion of the dread to repeat. And so then we enact all of these defenses to keep us from feeling that sense of disappointment that we can't really even name, but we know is there. Is it all kind of coming together?
Yes.
Okay.
That kind of going back to your example earlier of the guy that if he engages again and tries to do what you're doing, he's also feared that I'm going to get rejected again.
Right. Yep. That's the same idea.
Why do that? Or, yeah, you're fighting against that.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you do with that as a therapist? That's sort of the big question. Any ideas? Like, well, I have 10 therapy hours now. I have no clue. Or 5. Or 1, maybe. Or none, for some of you. Yeah.
Well, I probably acknowledge that fear.
Yeah.
Because their partner has the exact same fear, probably. And if they could acknowledge that they both are scared,
Yeah.
it might be very helpful.
Yeah. So let me give you an example. I've been seeing this couple. I think you're right. I've been seeing this couple mostly on, sometimes off, for the last 4 years. We've been together for a long time. And it's interesting, the rhythm to our work, because we'll go through seasons, like weeks, of really small, incremental, but meaningful progress. Where, well, let me give you a little backstory. Husband, history of abuse, responds primarily in isolation and then bouts of anger, and so he's really inconsistently available to his spouse. Spouse over time has grown very, very weary of this dance, and she's detached, really checked out, and she kind of moves in and out of that. And so over these periods of time when he's pretty well regulated, and I've got him moving towards her more and more, she'll start to open up. And then we'll back off a little. We'll go, okay, since we've been doing this for a long time, we'll go, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks. We're doing great. You guys keep it up. I'll see you in a month, right? And inevitably, the closer this couple gets to health, something happens. What do you think happens? Okay, right? So he gets dysregulated again, but why?
The defenses come back.
Uh-huh.
Based on his previous abuse.
Yeah. All of that matters. But we have cultivated and brought back online this desire for intimacy, for closeness, that it scares the hell out of him. And so the longer he does that and engages with his wife in that capacity, he can only handle it for a certain period of time before he sabotages it. So he'll do some sort of self-defeating behavior and then the wife's out. And then, I'm like picking it back up again, and we're doing the whole repair thing, and forget doing any work around the holidays. I mean, that is completely off because they are both very distressed. So, I mean, it's a dance of looking for these pockets of time when these movements can happen. But each time he does it, I go back to him and I say, this is what happened, right? Where he can identify, he has the language around it, he knows what's happening. And he knows he's shutting down this striving for deeper intimacy, and he wants it so badly, but he's also so scared of it. And we just stay in that tension.
Sometimes I'm wondering too, though, if you get them to get closer and closer to intimacy, and they probably have some connected time, but they might be very new at it, and they might be fumbling. Just not have any idea how to keep that going along.
Sure, right. There might be some skill deficits, just some basic relational skill deficits, and that definitely has a place in this approach to marital therapy. Yeah. So I mean, there's a good deal of. I mean, you have some individuals that just don't have the emotional vocabulary to even engage in a conversation. You got to start there, right? You got to give them some words. To be able to use, like, okay, here's your emotion chart, these are the kinds of the words that you should be using to describe your experience and those sorts of things.
But so you're saying if they have that vocabulary and they hit times in the relationship where they're just choosing not to, that's the defense.
Well, they're not even necessarily choosing not to. It is unconsciously they sabotage. So he acts out. It's not even that he shuts down. he gets enraged and shames and degrades her. And then he's brokenhearted about it, and he's in this shame cycle, and it gets really bad pretty quickly when he gets into that place.
That's an unconscious sabotage?
Yeah.
So how do you get him to
It started
differently once, like to recognize
moving the
fear
unconscious to the
before
conscious.
he-
We're doing that. That's the repeat. I mean, we're going back to this dread to repeat. Another way of understanding is developmental recapitulation. You see this a lot in trauma victims who try to master the trauma through exposing themselves to similar events and with the hope that they will figure out a different way of navigating it each time. Right? You can probably identify with this idea too in your own life. There are those certain things that we find ourselves doing over and over again, despite our best efforts to avoid them. Right? That's developmental recapitulation. So, to me, if there's one thing you walk away with that distinguishes psychodynamic couples therapy from the other forms of couple therapy, it's this idea here. Making space for the enactments, those parts of the unconscious mind that are enacted in the relationship. The couple doesn't know that they're happening, but they're meant to mitigate that dread to repeat. And if you're I don't mean just,